Good morning, Heaven Bound family, and all that are listening. This is Pastor Larry with a moment in the Word. On this Thursday morning, June the 3rd, and I wanted to get to Genesis chapter 24 today, which is without doubt my favorite chapter in the book of Genesis. However, as I tried to leave chapter 22, I found something there that I think needs to be emphasized. Chapter 22 is a chapter that is given over to the faith of Abraham in offering up his son Isaac. But what about Isaac? What a type of Christ Isaac is. You see, God offered up his son Jesus, not arbitrarily, but because Jesus was willing. Jesus said that my will is to do the will of my Father. And he followed the will of his Father, even into the Garden of Gethsemane, and from there on to Calvary itself, where he took his cross up Calvary there, and ultimately was bound to that cross with nails, and there hung, and in obedience died for the sins of the world. When we look at Isaac here in Genesis chapter 22, what a picture of Christ. Abraham the father says to his son Isaac, let's take a trip. It's going to be a 3-day walk. And Isaac obeys. Even as God sent Jesus from heaven to earth, Abraham's going to send Isaac, though he will go with him nonetheless. After all, the Father went with Jesus. But Isaac's going to take a 3-day hike to a place, not sure where he's going. When they get there, Abraham is going to take the wood that is going to become Isaac's cross, or Isaac's altar, if you will, which Isaac will be bound and will be laid up on, that he might die there in obedience to his father's will. Taking the wood up on himself and hiking up the mountain there, he asked his father, here's the wood and the fire, but where is the sacrifice? The Bible doesn't tell us how much Abraham discussed with Isaac what God was doing with him in testing Abraham. But surely Abraham must have discussed it at some length with Isaac. For when they get up on the mountain, Abraham is going to take the wood and he's going to lay it in order, building an altar there. And then he's going to bound Isaac. Had Isaac not been submissive to Abraham, certainly he could have escaped Abraham. He's a young man. Abraham's 115 years old, 16, 17. We don't know the exact age of Isaac or the exact age of Abraham. But ever how old Isaac was, Abraham was that old plus 100. And yet Isaac submits to Abraham, bounding him, even as Christ submitted to the Father, bounding him, if you will, to the cross. And when Abraham takes out the knife and brings it down to slay Isaac, we have no response from Isaac. Isaiah said Christ was as a lamb before his shears, he opened not his mouth. We have no outcry from Isaac here as Abraham is about to take his life. If Abraham had faith in God, certainly Isaac had faith in Abraham, his father. If you go further into the book of Genesis, especially in chapter 26, Abraham dies at 175, and now Isaac becomes the patriarch. And Isaac is going to be tempted with a famine, even as Abraham was. Isaac is going to go down as far as Bathsheba, but God is going to stop him there and tell him not to go to Egypt. He's going to settle in the land of Gerar. And there, because Rebecca is such a beautiful woman, he is going to be tempted with the same temptations that Abraham was. And just as Pharaoh sent Abraham away, Abimelech's going to send Isaac away. And he's going to settle in the land of Gerar, and he's going to dig a well there for his father. He's going to reopen up a well there that his father Abraham had dug in Abraham's day, a well that the Philistines had filled up after Abraham's death. Isaac is a man of peace, as Christ is a Prince of Peace. Isaac demonstrates a Christ-like spirit. He cleans out the well there that Abraham dug. The Philistines fill it in. He goes and digs another well. The herdsman of Gerar lays claim to it. He digs another well. They lay claim to it. Their herdsman strives with Isaac's herdsman. Isaac goes and digs a fourth well, and this time the herdsmen of Gerar give way to Isaac. But Isaac is a man of peace, even as Christ was the Prince of Peace. When we get to chapter 24, again, my favorite chapter, we're going to see Isaac here as a type of Christ, receiving his bride, even as Christ receives the church, and we'll talk about that in the morning. But I thought it unfair to give the whole 22nd chapter to Abraham, when Abraham is a type of God the Father, and not give some to Isaac, who is a type of Christ the Son. And as I thought about that, now what a picture of submissiveness Isaac is to Abraham, even as we are to be as Christians to our Heavenly Father. Isaac is submissive to the Father, even to death if need be, as we ought to be to our Heavenly Father, when that is our lot, when God requires that of us. Isaac is a man of peace, and we should be a peacemaker. Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God." Isaac is a type of Christ, the Prince of Peace. And we should be a type of both Isaac and Christ in the fact that we're peacemakers here, sharing the love of God with all that we have opportunity to do so. We'll talk more about Isaac tomorrow as the Lord leads when we get to chapter 24. This is Pastor Larry with a moment in the Word on this Thursday. Go forth today. Hey, be a peacemaker. Be submissive to all that God the Father calls you to be submissive to. Submissiveness is just another word for obedience. So let's go forth. Let's obey God the Father. Let's be that witness that He's called us to be. Let's see if we can't reconcile someone to Jesus, even as Jesus reconciles us to the Father. Go forth this Thursday. Be a blessing to someone. It'll bless them, it'll bless you, it'll bless God. And God, in turn, will bestow his blessings upon you. If you go to the 26th chapter of the book of Genesis, because Isaac was a peacemaker, God says to him there in the 26th chapter, I'm going to bless you. And he blesses Isaac there. And he'll bless you and I as we serve him here as peacemakers. Have a blessed and wonderful day.